Okay, so basically, if everyone is comfortable with this meeting being recorded, I hope that's okay, because we do need it for our own notes, as well as being able to make this video publicly available to those who are unable to make it this evening. If you are not comfortable with your face being shown, then very happy to turn your camera off and remove your name and be anonymous, but we will have recorded your details just for the sake of the application, to show that we did have people attend. It is lovely that so many people have, so hopefully is everyone okay? As see, the cameras are up. Yep. Okay, fantastic. So we're recording now. Let's get cracking. Seamlessly,
yes. Sorry, my there we go. Okay.
okay.
I've started presenting. There we go. So it's gone into a different window. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Oh, there's Kyle.
Yay. Okay.
Kyle.
Very sorry. I seem to have it must be sent about an old link, and I was sitting in a chat room by myself. Sorry about that.
You made it, and now I'm having real trouble finding the presentation on my desktop.
This all went smoothly earlier.
There you go.
Okay, so the outline for this evening is having asked everyone's permission, okay, for to record, is we're just going to introduce ourselves, the two companies, Seaweed Generation and Eat Seaweed, why we're going to why we want to farm seaweed, the location and why we chose it, the farm, including basically the layout of the farm, the impact that it might have, the potential impacts it might have, and also the impacts specifically towards the local area. It also needs to actually cover how it relates to the National Marine Plan. So there might be some repetition, because what we talk about in the impacts is also mentioned with the National Marine Plan. And then we'll be answering some questions that we have received by email, and then open it as a question and answer session to the floor. If you could please keep your microphones muted during the presentation, that would be really appreciated. If you do have any questions or comments, please do pop them up in the chat, but obviously during the question and answer session, there will be an opportunity to also directly ask questions, and I'll cover that at the time. So as an introduction, I'm going to start with Seaweed Generation. As you can see, you've got a lovely background. I really like the logo, so that's why I chose it, because it's got red seaweeds in. So Seaweed Generation is actually a pan-UK company. All the co-founders are located in various parts of the country. We're looking to basically make seaweed farming scalable, and that means scalable and sustainable, and that is sustainable both economically and ecologically. My name is Duncan Smallman. I was asked to be one of the co-founders, and I'm based in Cardress now in Argyll. Well, I crown myself as the Chief Seaweed Officer, but it's the Chief Cultivation Officer of the company. And as some of you may know and remember, I also ran Slate Island Seaweeds, which became Caledonian Seaweeds. And for many years, I was a resident of Easdale Island, and therefore hold the area in quite close to my heart still. Joining me is Patricia Estridge.
Hello, everyone.
Who is currently in London and is the CEO of the company. She was is a software engineer, is a software engineer, an entrepreneur. And yeah, as you can see, she founded Seaweed Generation to develop climate positive products, and we basically bonded over seaweed and The Expanse. If no one's watched The Expanse, please do. And we've also got Chief Scientific Officer, Dr. Mike Allen, who is based down in Exeter, and he's also an Associated Professor of Single Cell Genomics at the University of Exeter. Our other partner going in with this is Eat Seaweed and Kyle.
Hello. So we are Eat Seaweed, and we're a company developing ocean seaweed cultivation methods. We're also wild harvesting around the Firth of Lorne, as well as drying and processing seaweed and marketing seaweed for human consumption. Currently, we are working in conjunction with SWMID, the community project in Mull, who put in a 6-hectare farm in Loch Screedon. We are cultivating 3 kilometres of seeded line currently, including sugar kelp and Atlantic wakame. I'm Kyle Thurston, founder based in Oban, seaweed manager, commercial diver, fisherman and entrepreneur. My partner is Graham Hosey, co-founder based in Glasgow, and he specialises in renewable energy and production and storage.
Wonderful. Next. So want to emphasize that both Seaweed Generation and Eat Seaweed are obviously committed to following the best practice in obtaining not just practical license to operate, but a social license to operate. Though this pre-application consultation may be a legal requirement, it is paramount in ensuring that everybody has the opportunity to be heard. And it is key to us that you know, we do reach out and try and work with people. So that is why we try to reach out to as many people as we could to inform them of this meeting. Okay, so briefly, why seaweed? Many of you might have encountered me talking about seaweed in the past, but there are lots of species of seaweed, and they can all have different uses. And some of them are a source of very important compounds, most notably alginates, carrageenans, and agars. Seaweeds have also been identified as having health benefit properties, especially containing essential vitamins and minerals. And some of these vitamins and minerals and healthy compounds are found within the pigments, but there are other extracts that we have that have been shown to have antimicrobial, antiviral properties. They've been shown to help with potentially anti-tumor properties and fight everything from diabetes to cholesterol. They can be a good source of protein, and they do have a low fat content. They're already used as a tasty food. As Kyle has alluded to, he's already selling tasty seaweed. We have identified further markets to sell seaweed and their derived products, and it is generally considered a fast-growing market area. There have been numerous reports suggesting this is the case, and 2 of the most recent are published by Argyll and Bute Council, and a very recent one by Crown Estate Scotland. And they see seaweed as having a socio-economic benefits to not just Argyll, but to the whole of Scotland. So kind of a weird, why there's an interest in seaweed. Okay. And in particular, the species we would like to cultivate. The species we've identified are not just native to Scotland and the Firth of Lorne, but they are also found locally. We are looking to cultivate Dabelox, which is also known as winged kelp, or Atlantic wakame if you're selling it to people, and is Alaria esculenta. Another seeded, which will be a seeded line, is sugar kelp, Saccharina latissima. And we are looking to wild seed dulse, Palmaria palmata, as previous investigations in the area have shown that it grows extensively and has been found to wild seed on structures in the water. So those are species. So this is where the proposed maximal potential area will be covered in the where we're thinking in the Sound of Lyng is a maximum of 9 hectares, but we will be looking to start at 2 hectares. The license period would be for a maximum of 6 years for the initial license. So why the Sound of Lyng? As I said, the species we like to farm occur in the area, and there would be therefore native seed stock, and means likely to be successful. As many of you will appreciate, there is definitely very good water flow through there, and that means there's good water exchange, meaning good nutrients and good flushing for the area, and a lot of seaweeds like a good amount of water flow. It's away from high population areas, which is actually kind of important for food safety, so it means we have something to sell. And it is also relatively close to where it can be processed, which would be up just north of Oban with Eat Seaweed. Argyll and Butte Council have highlighted that Argyll is an area where seaweed cultivation could be successful, and that's why choosing an area that we kind of know. Appreciate the area has local boat expertise, which is essential for seaweed farming. And as I kind of alluded to, that I lived in the area and Kyle lives nearby. And so there's a connection for both of us. We were just wanting to try and help the local area environmentally and socio-economically. So I'm going to hand over to Kyle to talk a bit about the farm. Kyle, this is your bit.
The farm. So the farm is going to be a platform, a low platform. That's the key design feature of it, is that it's not submerged like a grid system or a long line system, and it's not like a adapted mussel system. It's basically we're going to be recycling fish farm circles, cutting them in half and straightening them out and using them as platforms, 80 meters in length. And maybe Duncan, if you show me, just switch to the farm design, I can sort of illustrate. Yeah, there'll be like long platforms, low to the water, 80 meters in length and about 110 meters apart. And there'll be another one perpendicular to it. If you just go back to the next page, the previous page. Yeah, and we'll be running 100 meter lengths of lines back and forth to each platform. The main sort of design feature with us is that the platforms are lower in the water, they're dark in colour, and they shouldn't be visible from a long distance, because we will be dismantling the vertical aspects of the fish farm cages and just leaving the actual platform, which will be anchored into the seabed. And we don't expect the platform to be above 0.5 metres from the water surface. A cool thing about what we're doing is we're recycling old fish farm materials, so there'll be no new plastic in the water, and also we're kind of been putting in seaweed inside the fish farm cages in exchange for these materials and other materials like anchors. So we're actually taking plastic out the sea, because currently the fish farms put plastic kelp in the sea to make habitat for fish, which we're replacing with seaweed as an exchange for these materials that would be going to landfill to be, I don't know, smelted or whatever, taken down to plastic again. So basically the long line systems will be, if you just go back to the diagram, please, Duncan, again. The long line systems will be 1.5 meters submerged under the water and under tension as well. So that means that we won't be using so much buoys. Normally a seaweed farm currently, if you're using a grid system, each seeded line will have 1 or 2 buoys attached to it. And with this system, we're doing away with all the buoys, reducing the visual impact. If you go back previously. The lines that we'll be working with, because we're working on a platform, all we simply need is a hand winch. We won't be needing a boat with a crane or a winch or any heavy sort of heavy industrial equipment to work from the farm. We can just use a hand winch, and actually it'll be much easier to do this, and it'll take less time, which will reduce marine traffic and reduce any sort of industry in the area. Our anchor layout will, we're hoping to achieve as less impact with mooring system as possible. We're looking at screw anchors, we're looking at cool anchors that sort of promote biodiversity. We don't want to use concrete blocks, and also the compactness of the design means that we don't have an expansive anchor stretching out all over the place, which could have benefits like having a low impact in marine diversity, and also fishermen would be able to fish in closer to the area. Therefore, if we're increasing biodiversity with our system, the fishermen should increase their yield, and we welcome to work with fishermen on that. We'll also be deploying a mini rig system as a comparative test to the longline system. So just basically we're experimenting to have different systems within the platforms to increase the yield as much as possible, so we can have a low area in the water with maximum yield. And if you switch to the drawing again, we can sort of illustrate. So this is just basically what I've been talking about. We have one platform 80 meters in length, another platform directly opposite, which is anchored in the seabed. And we have our seeded lines from platform to platform. They're under tension, and we work from these platforms. And just to emphasize that we'll be taking all the vertical aspects away from the platform, so there'll just be walkways basically 0.5 meters from the surface anchored into the seabed. Next slide, please. I think that's your section, Tom.
Yeah, so as Kyle said, there are going to be obviously some impacts. Main impacts is from probably anchors and moorings on the seabed. We do plan to carry out surveys before and after installation, and to continue, sorry, I realise it's over my notes. And then continue biodiversity surveys during cultivation, because marine biodiversity is very important to everyone, and certainly to us. The visual impact: the farm will lie lower in the water than what actually previously existed there and elsewhere. We're using dark materials for the actual farm to limit the visual long distance visual impact. The lines are also below the surface. We will require some buoys and marker buoys because it is in the water, and this will, so there will be that visual impact. We are attempting to keep the number of buoys required to the minimum, but we also have to meet the requirements of both what the statutory consultees, the Marine Coast Guard Agency, and the Northern Lighthouse Board advise. And there will be navigation markers, but this is actually determined, and the positions of these are determined by the Northern Lighthouse Board. Benthic shading: the area is noted as well as being a special area of conservation and a marine protected area. The area is noted for the priority marine feature of Laminaria hyperborea, which has been noted as being present in the area. The farm should be situated, or where the seaweed grows will be situated, at a depth of water where hyperborea certainly doesn't grow, or doesn't grow extensively, which is beyond deeper than 30 meters. In terms of biodiversity, the limited number of studies that have been undertaken, especially in Sweden and Ireland, indicate that either there's no negative impact, so no decrease in biodiversity, or actually a positive impact on biodiversity by actually seeing an increase in the overall biodiversity of a system. There have been no reports of any marine mammal or seabird entanglement in a seaweed farm to date. Space for other marine users: we are aiming to keep the design as compact as possible, and so that there will be continued easy access through the Sound of Luing, as well as shallow draft vessels such as kayaks and paddleboards would be welcome to pass through the area, and access to any area that have previously been recorded for anchorage has been kept. Next slide. So positive impacts. The novel design is actually, positive impacts might actually be your string. I think Carl's actually covered many of these, but we are using a novel design that has been using tried and tested materials that require less space, but has potential for higher yields. By using platforms, we feel that we should be able to limit the noise pollution, and therefore the need for too much heavy machinery, and reduce the amount of actual boat traffic operating around the farm. We are hoping to reduce the amount of farm maintenance required in the short, medium and long-term use of the farm structure, potentially increasing biodiversity. Hoping we'll be supporting water quality. Cultivation at sea requires, importantly, no water or fertilizers, so there is no feed going in. And seaweed is known to be potentially as a bioremediation tool, I hate to use the term, but species. we are adamant and really keen on local involvement. So there is great potential for this. And importantly, we are upcycling something that would otherwise be a waste. Kyle, I think this is yours.
Yes, so Eat Seaweed is a Oban-based aquaculture company. We will be running and installing the farm. From our experience, from my experience, and from the Smith experience, we are working with the fishermen in Benesson to help us work the farm and deploy the seeded line and harvest the seaweed. And the fishermen have one of the fishermen we work with gets a regular secondary income, which is reliable from the seaweed farm, which he reports as been good for him in leaner months. From our perspective and from my perspective, it's been invaluable to work with fishermen who know the waters better than anyone, and we really hope to have a similar relationship with fishermen or fishermen in the local area of Luing. So yeah, because we're using a compact anchor system and a compact farm, we think that there's a greater area for fishermen to fish close to us. We could create greater biodiversity, and also because we have a compact anchor system, we think boat tours could benefit from this by being able to bring tourists close to a sort of novel thing that's happening in the area, to be able to have a look and to see what's going on. The access to the farm, so Sam's and we've been sort of talking about how we can bring young people through the seaweed industry, and I know Sam's are doing a sort of program of Seaweed Academy. So we think working from these platforms is quite a good platform to work from rather than working from a boat. From my own experience, it's quite dangerous, and you're doing a lot of bending over. It's not very good for the body, and you have to use a lot of heavy machinery to work other systems. So we think our design could be quite a good platform to work from for experienced seaweed farmers and for new seaweed farmers. Because we're starting to grow and harvest quite a lot of seaweed, we're developing our processing and drying facilities in the Oban area. It's actually slightly north of Oban. And we're currently upgrading our drying and processing facility to handle more volume, which should result in more local employment. Some of our exports are currently just happening in Scotland and the UK, but we're hoping to go beyond to other markets and sort of showcase a product of Scottish provenance. Again, like Duncan says, we're really keen to encourage local involvement, be it biodiversity studies or just general sort of any involvement we're sort of keen on in a local way. Thanks, Duncan. Business model. Okay, so selling to high-end food markets, which we're doing at the moment, to restaurants and looking to export to Asian markets. We're developing low carbon extracts for the high-end compounds like alginates, agar, and pigments. Recently, we harvested dulse last year, which has been dried and packaged and has been selling quite well. And we hope to do that nationally and possibly abroad. Though we have experienced strong sales through our local markets, which we hope to expand on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kyle. This is me, and I do apologise. This is a wee bit of a, there is a lot. There are 20 key general principles, parts of the plan of the Scotland's National Marine Plan, and do actually have to touch upon how the farm relates to it. So I do apologise for this bit. There is a presumption in favour of, admittedly, there is going to be a lot of repetition because, you know, we've already been looking at how the farm could potentially, you know, the impacts of the area. And so that is kind of what the National Marine Plan is all about. There's a presumption in favour of sustainable development and use of the marine environment when consistent with the policies and objectives of this plan. I mean, we view seaweed farming as a sustainable development and a sustainable use of the marine environment. Gen 2 is economic benefit, sustainable development and use which provides economic benefit to Scottish communities is encouraged when consistent with the objectives and policies of this plan. The companies involved are either, well, based locally in Oban or have at least an Argyll base, i.e. me, and we aim to include the local islands with the aim of using local contractors and through direct employment, and obviously explore other ways that we can be involved and to encourage a certain degree of the economic benefit to be shared around. Social benefit, sustainable development and use which provides social benefits is encouraged when consistent with the objectives and policies of the plan. It's kind of similar to the economic benefit. We're open to exploring other ways of involving people with the farm and around about it. So not just jobs, but potentially education, linking, say, up with the Atlantic Island Centre, which kind of goes into Gen 4, which is coexistence. Proposals which enable coexistence with other development sectors and activities within the Scottish marine area, encouraging planning and decision-making processes when consistent with policies and objectives of this plan. We would like to work with local tour operators and the Atlantic Island Centre on Luing, and other people who use the area, other fishermen, whoever, to incorporate the seaweed farm into their plans, and so everyone can sort of, well, I say term enjoy it, but see, we're open to ideas. General point 5 is climate change. Marine planners and decision makers must act in a way that's best calculated to mitigate and adapt to climate change. Though it's still debated, seaweed is considered to have a climate change mitigation, and kind of think that might still be the case. This, by upcycling, we're also reducing the need for further fabrication, and therefore our view is that actually this is trying to aim and get seaweed farming to as close to neutral, being carbon neutral. At the moment, seaweed farming is not quite at carbon neutral, and we think our design will actually help reach that potential. The historic environment, development and use of the marine environment should protect and, where appropriate, enhance heritage assets in a manner proportionate to their significance. Obviously, the area is the historic slate islands, and there have been historic on the islands of Lunga and Scarborough. Obviously, historically, people did live there. It is also, I think, a national scenic area, and we don't envisage that this would actually have a negative impact on the historic environment around the area. The key one that that the National Marine Plan and the licensing is very important on is actually the Gen 7 landscape and seascape. Marine planners and decision makers should ensure that the development and use of the marine environment takes seascape, landscape and visual impacts into account. We are aiming to have that the design will have a low visual impact as possible on the area, and will not diminish from what is, I am very well familiar, that is a very beautiful area. Number 8, coastal process and flooding. Developments and activities in the marine environment should be resilient to coastal change and flooding, and not have unacceptable adverse impacts on coastal processes or contribute to coastal flooding. There is no evidence that cultivation of seaweed at the size of the farm proposed has an adverse impact on coastal processes or contributes to coastal flooding. In fact, there is more evidence to suggest that actually help forests protect against coastal flooding. So maybe it's on that front, it will possibly be a good thing. Natural heritage development and use of the marine environment must comply with legal requirements for protected areas and protected species, not result in significant impact on the national status of priority marine features, protect and, where appropriate, enhance the health of the marine area. Are aware that the farm is within an MPA and an SAC, and that is why obviously we want to do biodiversity surveys prior to anything happening. On using the resources available, the only thing that really came to pass was that there is one priority marine feature recorded where the farm would be, and that is the Laminaria hyperborea. Our view is following that of others who have considered seaweed farming as a regenerative type of aquaculture and farming. And as there was once a fish farm there, we feel that actually this is a chance to see if seaweed farming can properly help regenerate an environment that had been so negatively impacted. Invasive non-native species, we're not using any invasive or non-native species, so I'm very happy about that one. That's a nice, easy one to tick off. Next page. Just 10 more. Marine litter, developers using those accessing the marine environment must take measures to address marine litter where appropriate. Reduction of litter must be taken into account by decision makers. Obviously, there's always a risk of something going wrong, but we are using Kyle's know-how going to minimize the risk of adding to anything like marine litter in the area. Number 12, water quality and resource developments and activities should not result in the deterioration of the quality of waters to which the Water Framework Directive, Marine Strategy Framework Directive, or other related directives apply. Seaweed is, in many cases, actually being used as a way to mitigate against poor water quality because it does soak up excess nutrients in the area. So if there were any from any agricultural runoff or other runoff, it would actually soak that up. So we do view that it actually might improve what should actually be grade A standard waters anyway. Noise, development and use in the marine environment should avoid significant adverse effects of man-made noise and vibration, especially on species sensitive to such effects. Additional noise will be derived from the installation and potentially line deployment and harvesting. However, by using the platform method that Carl's developed, we should be actually seeing less noise than other types of development, and so we'd be aiming to keep that to a minimum. The sound of Luing does actually see frequent boat traffic through it, and the additional vessels would probably not be a significant increase in the boat derived noise, especially as we can tie up and therefore turn the engines off and keep it nice and peaceful. I'm familiar that there are harbour porpoise that frequent the area, so we don't want to disturb them. Air quality, development and use of the marine environment should not result in the deterioration of air quality and should not breach any statutory air quality limits. There is no evidence that has been found to suggest that seaweed farming results in the deterioration of air quality. Planning alignment A, marine and terrestrial plans should align to support marine and land-based components required by development and seek to facilitate appropriate access to the shore and sea. Marine plans should align and comply where possible with other statutory plans and should consider objectives and policies of relevant non-statutory plans where appropriate. To do so applies to inshore waters only. I'm not totally sure how the farm actually relates to that, and I would say that we don't, we're not limiting access to land or sea. Fairness, all marine interests will be treated with fairness and in a transparent manner when decisions are being made in the marine environment. Wonderful. Engagement, early and effective engagement should be undertaken with the general public and all interested stakeholders to facilitate planning and consenting processes. We have tried to reach out as early as possible to the general public and promote the public consultation. The public consultation presentation will be available to view on YouTube or elsewhere, and we'll try and make sure people do get a link. There is a minimum of 2 weeks post the consultation for further questions and comments to be received prior to writing up the consultations as a report that will be submitted when the license is submitted. Once the license application has been submitted, there is a 14-week period to allow for further comment on the license. It should be noted that actually the legal requirement is only 6 weeks prior notice, a minimum of 6 weeks prior notice of the planned consultation event in a paper. So we did advertise in the Oban Times as per the regulations, but we wanted, obviously Christmas got in the way and a few other things got in the way, and noticing that there hadn't been any sign up, I did try and make sure that reach out and get in contact with as many people as possible and relevant organizations and potential stakeholders. All the statutory consultees were also notified, and those are the Marine Coast Guard Agency, the Commission of the Northern Lighthouse Board, Nature Scott, and SEPA. And I'm sure I've just forgotten one, but we'll stick with those. They were all the statutory consultees required. Sound evidence, decision making in the marine environment will based on sound scientific and socio-economic evidence. 2 recent reports published by Argyll and Bute Council and Crown Estate Scotland help form the basis of the reasoning to farm seaweed. The site has been chosen based on a previous site visit identifying suitable species for cultivation that had wild seeded on an old salmon farm that was previously sited in the location. Adaptive management practices should take account of new data, information, and decision making, forming future decisions and future iterations of policy. We will be taking data and adapting accordingly, and the license lasts for 6 years, and we plan to make sure that we can keep people informed and involved. And so hopefully a review at the point of 6 years, and maybe hold regular seaweed events as well, so people are kept informed. And that is the National Marine Plan. Next slide. So we did receive some questions by email. In the notice, it mentions, I'm just going to go through these. In the notice, it mentions the sound of Lunga. Could you please clarify the location? Yeah, that was my fault. I keep on thinking of it as the sound of Lunga, and for some reason decided to type it up as sound of Lunga, not sound of Ling. And it's where the old fish farm used to be. This site is one that we see from our house, and I'm interested to know what the farm will include. Is it just buoys, or will there be some permanent raised structures as well? There will possibly be low-lying structures and buoys present. However, it won't be the same as any kind of potentially mussel farm buoys, or certainly not what you can see with a salmon farm. What sort of job creation your plans could create for Ling? We can see the need for help with line deployment, harvesting, processing, and monitoring of the farm. There's also potential for deployment for biodiversity monitoring. And, you know, we are very happy to explore other options as well. And if people have an idea of what they could do with seaweed, then there's also an option of obviously using some of that seaweed there. Okay, questions and answers. Thank you with pretty well at the end. So thank you very much for listening to our presentation. We are very happy to take any questions or if anyone has any comments. To do so, please raise your hand using the raise hand function in Zoom, or pop your question in the chat. You can also send us your comments and questions to info@seaweedgeneration.com. Recording of this will be posted online, and we will be accepting comments until the 5th of March, at which point we intend to submit the license application along with the lease option agreement with the Crown Estate Scotland. A report of this consultation event will be included with the license application, will be submitted within a year of this public consultation event. Once the license application has been submitted and accepted, there is a 14-week period for further comments to be submitted. Prior to the license application being submitted and being made available online, all comments and questions should be sent to info@seaweedgeneration.com and not Marine Scotland. Whew, there we go. So thank you very much.
Well done, Duncan. Iona, you raised your hand. Yeah.
Hello there, everyone. Yes, so me, Ninian, Ailsa, are part owners of Lunga, the island of Lunga, and obviously the house aspect looks out exactly where this fish farm is planned. And I know that you say it's where the fish farm was, but when you look at the map, you are coming north right up to where we actually access the shore to get to the house. It doesn't look to me like you have a large area there really between the rocky outcrop and the northwest point of your area to actually get in, which surprises me when you say that you can still access the anchorage that's on the maps. And we also pay for a mooring point. We don't have the mooring there, but the plan is to actually put one in because we would like to develop the house potentially as a holiday let So there's quite a lot in exactly what I've just said there. But I suppose what I'm trying to find out is, how do you visualize that access still being possible? Are we able to drive amongst the platforms? Will you have an exclusion zone? Just, a little bit about that would be really helpful.
Okay, as I said, that is the maximum potential. It is something that we can adapt, and we'll take that certainly on board. As Kyle said, we are hoping that we are starting with down south, where the fish farm was. So we're going to start down there, and it would be then extending potentially north. But if it's going to potentially impact on access, we'll take that into account and adjust accordingly.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously it is our access point to that house, so we do require that to remain regardless of anything else.
Yep.
So that's good to know. I don't know how you'll inform us going forwards, but we can talk about that after. The other thing really is, I know you're saying it's going to be as minimal visual impact as possible, but it is the direction that the house looks. And I suppose there's a small concern that as we develop something there, whether it's for ourselves or for some sort of holiday let business, I don't really know what the answer is or what you can suggest, but how might we go about dealing with that visual impact?
That's a very good question. So admittedly the aspects of the growing structures will be there all the time. I mean, I can pass that over to Kyle to see how we can figure that out. We can take that on board and we can include it. I can't necessarily give an answer now. Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, just to go back to one of the questions you said the first time is, it's not, although we're adapting some of the fish farm materials, it's not going to be like a grid system with lots and lots of buoys and lots of huge boats working the area. The desirable aspect of this design is that it's a friendly sort of thing that can be worked from and sort of approached, rather than a grid system with lots of heavy machinery with barges and quite intimidating from the shore like a fish farm is. Because I've worked in many fish farms, I know what they're like. These platforms, even I envision there's not going to be any sort of obstruction by boats coming anywhere near. In fact, we want to have a small boat that we can sort of come to the platform, tie alongside, and then just simply turn the engine off and work from. From that practical aspect, it has many benefits for working, but it also means there's far less industry than any other system you would have to use regarding any heavy or large boats. In regards to access, I feel like it'd be quite easy to maneuver amongst. Although, I think from our point of view, like, could easily move it north, much further north than when we're proposing to the south. If that's an issue visually.
I think the house is further north, Kyle, isn't it?
The house is west of the northwest point.
Right.
If you look on the map, it is marked on the map just as a little square. It is just, you've got a few skerries just off your northwest top corner. So directly west of there's a boathouse. That is where we come in. We sort of tuck in behind those skerries, and the house is west directly again from there. Our mooring is southeast of the house, so it's like southwest of your northwest marker buoy. And again, my biggest concern about that is obviously boat swing, proximity and anchorage for the mooring itself, and how that might tangle in with your systems as well.
Mm-hmm. And are you saying that you're planning on installing a new mooring system, or you have one currently there?
No, so we pay for a mooring. We would like to install one, and potentially some sort of pontoon system as well, running north-south. I don't think that would impact in your area, but it's just the access thing. You know, our boats, our jet boats, I'm aware that these are anchored ropes, but it gives me a concern that we might find that we're attaching ourselves to your seaweed lines. You know, just the proximity is an issue for me.
So the main for the kelps anyway, the main cultivation period is actually winter. So lines are usually deployed in October and then harvested April or May time. Dulse does grow a wee bit later, and so for some of it, for the dulse, yes, there might be a wee bit of conflict during the peak season, but we'll take this on board and we'll
yeah, I'm quite happy to consult further with you without everyone else having to listen to it all. That by all means. So that's quite interesting. I was going to ask about harvesting, and
Steve's got a question, which is, could it be extended towards the entrance of the great dogs? We weren't necessarily planning on extending towards the grey dogs. Is that and plus access to Poln and Corran? We weren't planning on going further south, but unless you were suggesting we should go further south. I was thinking that the tides might be just a bit fast at that point down there.
Tony, you have a question?
Duncan, can I come in?
Tony.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know how to put a hand up other than wave. So,
I don't know either.
Right. As you know, we use that area quite a lot for the boat trips. We would ask that there is this definite clear passage down the west, between the west side of the farm and the land of Lunga, and that it is clearly marked. Is that going to be possible?
Yes, I mean that is something that would be actually advice also from the Northern Lighthouse Board. They were very clear that they are the ones that determine actually the types of markers that would be required. So we can move further out. That is also possible. We can change certain aspects of the design so that it takes everything into account. So there is the access down the east side of Lunga, because I think the boats go in to look at sometimes otters and seals.
You can't be watching the wildlife from 150, 200 meters away, as you well know. We need to be fairly close inshore and doing what we do and have done for the last 22 years. And that's all we're asking is that there is clear passage and it's marked, because obviously, as you know, there are various knobs which stick out that we have to avoid as well.
Yeah, there isn't really any access route from the south, whether you move the fish farm or not. There isn't. The way that the skerries are, you couldn't come in that way. So, like Tony's asking, we need to have that northern access.
Yeah, so we need to get out by the south. So we need clear passage at whatever distance is deemed sensible, probably 100 meters.
The aim of the southern bit was to actually encompass where the farm actually sat, rather than how it actually appears on the charts. It never sat where it actually says on the charts. So
as you know, we could always go inside the fish farm in order to continue with our tours. I am slightly concerned about only having something which is 1/2 metre, showing 1/2 metre, and it's black, particularly when it's rough weather. I know you'll probably be forced to have your yellow buoys up the side of it, but one yellow buoy could be difficult. Certainly we know it's there, but yeah.
So how this is where we've got to seek the balance of having suitable visibility, which is obviously something very well aware of for the which both the MCA and the NLB are very keen on seeing happen. Is that, I mean, they would want everything as buoyed up as possible, and of course that actually goes against what even the National Marine Plan says, which is lower visual impact. So it is something we'll be I mean, we're happy also to seek your advice on that, so that when we do have a plan, we can come back and say, this is where the new strategy would be, and suitable markings, especially on where boat passage would be. But on the advice of what buoys we would use, we actually have to, yes, there would be the normal navigation markers, but that will be as detailed given by the Northern Lighthouse Board.
That's correct, but as you well know, that if you're going past the fish farm, you've got the yellow buoys which are there, but the fish farm you can see from miles away. One doubts whether one could see your black buoys. I'm not trying to be awkward. I think the seaweed farm is an ideal thing to have, but I also want to make sure that I safeguard our business, which says that we can continue to operate safely.
We will find then a suitable buoy that is visible to give boats time to, so that you know where it is, without necessarily huge long distance visibility. It is a challenge.
Yeah, on the east side, they will NLB will insist of, if it is NLB, will insist that you have those yellow fish farm marker buoys. I can see it now. Just like you have everywhere else. But on the west side, they may not insist on anything. And I would ask that if necessary, you put in suitable buoys to give us a marked passage.
Okay.
And just regarding passage, just to emphasise, although we're using fish farm materials to make the platform, we won't be using a grid system that's commonly associated with fish farms, which gives a much greater degree of passage in the area, and much less, much more able to give more access around the fish farm from the west and east.
That's right.
Any other questions? Oh, yes. You're still on.
Sorry. Yes. Just out of curiosity, you say that the platforms are 80 meters long. How wide are they?
Kyle.
You know, are they just a narrow slither in the water, or are they sort of, 3-4 meters wide? How?
They're about 2 meters wide.
About 2 meters wide. Okay. And I'm just trying to visualize.
It's basically, if you stood 2 people next to each other, that's about the width of a platform.
And as your initial proposal, how many of those would be incorporated? Like, how many of those do you envisage having? And if you manage to get the whole area, how many would there be in total? I can't work out from the map there off the top of my head, just on a tiny screen, actually what the distance is. So that's what I'm asking.
One of the benefits of using this system is that we can achieve such a much bigger yield in such a smaller area. For example, using the 2 hectares that we plan to use straight away with 2 80 meters platforms. If maybe go back to, I don't know, the drawing, it'd be easier to show you in the drawing, but it'd basically be one platform next to another 100 meters separated from another platform, another platform opposite. So it'd be a very, very small area. in regards to, I mean, but with that sort of area, we can commercially farm a very small area, achieving a high yield, rather than covering such a large area to achieve the same yield.
Yeah, but how many, I'm just trying to envisage here, but how many of those sections of platforms do you think you'll have in, say, your 2 hectare area? How many?
Well, that would be, that is this actually would be that's two. That's sorry, I'm doing the maths as well. 220 is it'd be 230 meters by 80 meters, and which isn't quite, well, it is about 2 hectares, but it's that is the initial area. We might not be actually 2 in the middle, it might be 1, and we can extend like that.
So this image is what you would start with, basically,
yeah,
for 2
something,
hectares. Okay, that's
something
what I need to know.
Similar to that. And then obviously if you were going full, if we go for the 9 hectares, then it would be basically, it would be like 9, well, actually it'd be probably 8 of those, because they're, well, the length is 110, so it'd be 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Overall.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, Steve.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, can you go back to the map that you showed earlier on?
Sorry,
how does that compare with the fish farm that was there before?
Well, I mean, it is currently the proposed area is bigger than the fish farm. The fish farm before was I think 55 meters by 55 meters with those 4 square pen. It might have actually been a bit bigger, and the inside pens were 50, but that was a small square. That was I can't realize I'm not the one sharing the screen, so I can't actually point it out, but it was
was it right at the bottom?
Yeah, it was there. So this a single kind of unit area would be of similar well, it would be a bit bigger than what the fish farm there originally was, but it won't be actually as high a structure as the fish farm was, and hopefully not as many other things sticking off it.
Yeah. Obviously I work with Safari, and just looking at it now, it almost blocks off our access to come back around that area. It's a lot of, you seem to be covering a lot of ground in that one particular place, which Safari have used for sort of 20 odd years. And it's not showing us an access to get back out of there. Is there access to get back out there for us or not?
Okay, we'll go back to, we can go back and adjust accordingly to make sure that there is suitable access. I'm going to say that was the provisional drawings, and the aim was always to ensure suitable access. So we can go back and make sure that there is going to be appropriate access. As I say, that is the maximum potential area. It does not mean necessarily going to need or require, as the first initial trials are, to basically see what the yields are, and we can come back with something that makes sure that it works for everyone, and that's the purpose of today. Okay.
Sorry, can I ask something else?
Yep.
Just out of curiosity. You say the proposed lifespan is 6 years. What's your thoughts for after the 6 years? I mean, I assume you're hoping it will continue, but is that just the average lifespan? Do you need a fallow period? You know,
that's the license period is 6 years, and then you go through a renewal process of renewing a license. At the moment, I don't think any seaweed farm, apart from the one for scientific study up at Sam's, has gone for over 6 years yet. So it's still a wee bit uncharted territory that way. Fallow periods, that is an interesting question. Whether a seaweed farm needs a fallow period is still not 100% clear on that front. I know your question wasn't actually about seaweed diseases. My background's actually with parasites as well, so like parasites of salmon. So I know about, during a cultivation project, we actually found a new disease of seaweed, so that's always fun, which is found all around in the wild as well. So it's not just that it was a cultivation issue. It was brought in from the wild. So with fallow periods, there might need to be a fallow period, or it will be a form of crop rotation.
Yeah. Okay. And just also maintenance wise, so obviously harvesting, it's a small boat, they come and they moor up. Maintenance wise, what kind of regularity would that be? I'm just trying to gather as much information about it as I can.
I guess, so currently on the farm in Mull, we're usually going to the farm once a month, and just to do visual checks and do some work on the farm with the boat. When we were deploying the lines, we deployed them in October, and that would be one day every weekend for 3 weekends in October. We were on the boat deploying.
Okay.
When we were deploying on the farm in Mull, we actually used 2 boats to deploy the seeded line. However, using platforms, we'd actually only need to use one. In fact, we wouldn't even need to use one. You could actually just tie up next to it and not use the boat at all.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think like at the moment on Mull, we go once a month. However, I'd rather go once every 2 weeks, just to have more regularity of checks. The reason we go once a month at the moment is purely by cost. It costs a lot to rent the boat essentially at the moment, and that's one of the reasons behind the design, is not having to use lots of boats and heavy machinery. So yeah, I would envision going to the farm once every 2 weeks, maybe once a month between October and December. Then as the seaweed starts to grow a bit more, you'd be maybe going once every 2 weeks. And using the platforms, it means that we can do the work a lot faster and a lot easier, rather than wrestling with the tides and the winds and all that. It's another good aspect of the design. So yeah, generally I would say once every 2 weeks between the growing season, which is between October and April. And then in May, it would be sort of wild, we'd be harvesting the material, which we envision using a sort of barge that would come in and just harvest it as quickly as we possibly can.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I think that's all I've got.
Good question.
Okay. Steve, did you have another? I thought you raised your hand. All right. Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you very much then. If there's no other comments or questions, for your questions and comments, we'll take. Oh, Ariane, you got your hand up. No? Yes.
That was clappy hands.
All right. Sorry, I didn't actually notice because your background's yellow as well, and they just oh, there's hands there. Yes. So thank you very much for everyone for coming and attending this evening. Obviously taken the comments on board, and we'll those who have commented will obviously reach out and for your suggestions, and then we'll try and make this recording available as soon as possible for others who have not seen it. So I just want to thank you again for your time this evening and for coming along.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you just want a quick debrief? I thought that was.
Got the recording. Hold on a second.